For 45 minutes, the impossible looked real. Japan wasn't just beating Brazil, they were exposing them, silencing thousands of Brazilian supporters, making the five-time world champions look uncomfortable. And for one brief moment, the entire football world started thinking the same thing. Maybe Brazil isn't ready after all. That was the biggest mistake anyone could make, because if football has taught us anything over the last 100 years, it is this: never celebrate against Brazil too early. Some teams win because they dominate. Some teams win because they have one extraordinary player. But Brazil? Brazil wins because pressure awakens something almost impossible to explain, something built across generations. 5 World Cups, countless legends, decades of moments when everyone believed they were finished, until they weren't. And against Japan, history repeated itself. Not because Brazil played perfectly, they didn't. Not because Japan collapsed, they didn't. Brazil won because champions understand something that talented teams never truly learn. A football match doesn't end when momentum disappears. It ends when the referee blows the final whistle. Japan understood exactly how to make Brazil uncomfortable. Their pressing was relentless. Every Brazilian midfielder received the ball with a blue shirt already closing the space. The passing lanes disappeared. The rhythm vanished. Vinicius Jr. was forced deeper than usual. Bruno Guimaraes had fewer seconds to think. Casemiro spent more time protecting than building. Everything Carlo Ancelotti wanted to control, Japan refused to allow. Then came the breakthrough. One quick transition, one perfectly timed movement, one finish that stunned the stadium. Japan led. And suddenly everything changed, not only on the scoreboard, but inside the minds of millions watching around the world. Because this wasn't just another underdog taking the lead. This was the first real psychological test Brazil had faced in the tournament. Group stage victories create confidence. Knockout football creates character. Those are completely different things. The cameras immediately found Brazilian faces in the stands. Some looked nervous, others couldn't believe what they were seeing. Meanwhile, the Japanese players sensed something historic. Their belief grew with every completed pass, every successful tackle, every minute that disappeared from the clock. And that's exactly what makes international football so dangerous. Momentum doesn't ask permission. It changes sides without warning. For almost the entire first half, Japan dictated the emotional pace of the game. Brazil looked human, and perhaps that's why what happened next was so extraordinary. Halftime arrived. No panic. No desperate tactical revolution, no players screaming at each other. Instead, Ancelotti remained almost expressionless. That calm wasn't accidental. It was contagious. Great managers understand something supporters often forget. Players borrow emotions from their coach. If the manager panics, the team panics. If the manager believes, the players begin believing too. When Brazil returned for the second half, they looked different, not faster, not more aggressive, more patient. Their passes suddenly carried purpose. The distances between the midfield and attack became shorter. The pressing traps started working. Japan was no longer chasing a second goal. They were defending the first, and that tiny psychological shift changed everything. Because protecting a lead and chasing a game demand completely different mentalities. Brazil sensed it immediately. Vinicius started receiving more space. Bruno Guimaraes dictated possession. The fullbacks advanced with confidence. Every attack felt heavier than the previous one. Every minute increased the pressure. Every clearance returned even faster. Then came the equalizer. The stadium exploded, not simply because Brazil had scored, because everyone watching understood what that goal truly meant. The match had completely changed. Japan had spent over an hour controlling the narrative. One moment erased all of it, and now the pressure belonged to them. That is where Brazil becomes different from almost every nation in football history. 5 World Cups don't simply create trophies, they create belief. An invisible confidence passed from generation to generation. Pelé. Romario Ronaldo, Ronaldinho Kaká. Now Vinicius. Different eras, different players, the same mentality. Brazil never truly believes it's losing. It only believes time is running out. There is a massive difference. Then came the decisive attack. The movement looked almost rehearsed. Quick circulation, perfect timing, one final pass, one clinical finish. Brazil had turned defeat into victory. In less than 30 minutes, the entire emotional landscape of the World Cup changed. Japan had proven they belonged, but Brazil had reminded everyone why football history belongs to them. And that may be the most terrifying message of this entire tournament, because Brazil didn't win while playing its best football. Brazil won while suffering, while adapting, while solving problems in real time. Champions aren't measured by how they play when everything goes according to plan. They're measured by what they become when everything starts falling apart, and if this Brazil can survive nights like this. The rest of the World Cup may have a very serious problem, because the hardest team to eliminate is always the one that learns how to win without being at its best. Here is the terrifying part. Japan did not expose Brazil's weakness. Japan exposed Brazil's danger. Because for the first time in this World Cup, Brazil were forced into the place where champions are truly revealed. Behind, under pressure, with the clock moving against them, with millions waiting to see if the giant would fall, and instead of collapsing. Brazil remembered who they are. That is what should scare everyone, because any team can look dangerous when it scores first. Any team can look confident when the match follows the plan, but only a few teams in football history can be punched in. The mouth lose control, feel the stadium tighten around them, and still come back, like the ending was inevitable. Brazil is one of those teams. Japan had the perfect plan. They ran, they pressed, they believed. For long stretches, they made Brazil uncomfortable in ways no opponent had managed before, and that is exactly why this victory matters so much. This was not a beautiful win. It was something more important, a survival win, a championship win, the kind of match a team remembers weeks later when the pressure becomes even worse. Because now Brazil knows something about itself. It can suffer. It can bleed. It can be shaken. But it does not break, and that changes the entire tournament. Here is the first warning for every remaining opponent. Brazil's attack is not just explosive. It is patient. That is a nightmare combination. Japan tried to close the spaces, block Vinicius, compress the midfield, and force Brazil into frustration. For a while it worked, but Brazil kept searching, kept moving, kept waiting for the one crack, and when the crack appeared, they entered like a knife. That is Ancelotti's influence. No chaos, no panic, no emotional football, just cold calculation. The second warning is even more dangerous. Brazil no longer needs to dominate to destroy you. This team can win different types of games. Open games, tactical games, ugly games, nervous games, games where everything goes wrong first. That flexibility is what separates contenders from champions. And after Japan, Brazil looked less like a talented team and more like a tournament machine. But here is the hook nobody can ignore. The comeback may have unlocked something Brazil did not even have before: belief under fire. Before Japan, Brazil believed because they were playing well. After Japan, Brazil believes because they survived. That is a completely different kind of confidence. It is deeper, darker, more dangerous. It tells the players, even when the match turns against us, we still have a way back. And once a squad accepts that idea, eliminating them becomes brutally difficult. Now imagine being the next opponent. You watched Japan execute a disciplined plan and still fail. You watched Brazil concede first and still rise. You watched the five-time world champions look vulnerable and somehow become more frightening because of it. What do you even target now? Do you press high and leave space behind for Vinicius? Do Do you sit deep and invite Brazil to suffocate you? Do you attack and risk the counter? Do you defend and wait for Neymar, fresh legs, and one moment of genius? Every answer creates another problem. That is why the football world is nervous, because Brazil are not just advancing, they are evolving. The group stage showed their quality, Japan showed their mentality, and in knockout football, mentality often decides everything. The great teams do not need perfect nights. They need decisive moments. Brazil had theirs, and they took them. This is where the story becomes bigger than one match. For 24 years, Brazil has carried the weight of 2002. Every generation since then has been compared to ghosts. Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Bart Rivaldo, Cafu, Roberto Carlos legends who turned the yellow shirt into a symbol of fear. For years, Brazil had talent, but not the same inevitability. Against Japan, that feeling returned. Not fully, not yet, but enough for the world to notice. Enough for opponents to feel it. Enough for fans to start believing that maybe, just maybe, this is the team that can bring the sixth star home. And that is the most powerful hook of all. Brazil did not just beat Japan. Brazil sent a message: you can hurt us. You can scare us. You can make us suffer. But to eliminate us, you will have to survive the full force of who we are. The pressure rises now. The opponents get stronger. The margins get smaller. But Brazil has already crossed one of the most important psychological borders in any World Cup. They have won a match they could have lost. And teams that do that often become impossible to stop. Japan gave the world hope. Brazil took it away. Now the tournament has a problem. The giant is awake, and this time it knows how to suffer.